Hello everyone, this is Juan Bloisi with Washington Interpreters. The WFSE union has ended contract negotiations for Illinois interpreters, and unfortunately, it was a disaster. The reality is that WFSE leaders failed to get any benefits for Illinois interpreters. I'll show you all of the images and the evidence. Please watch this entire video. Last week on September 16th, Quan Tran from Interpreters United sent this email to interpreters, letting everyone know that Illinois refused to pay for no-shows and late cancellations or for a significant pay rate increase for Illinois interpreters. Because they were powerless and couldn't do anything about it, they decided to proceed to interest arbitration, the process where the Public Employment Relations Commission assigns an arbitrator who is somebody selected to decide what benefits, if any, Illinois interpreters would get. The problem is that the arbitrator's decision is final, so interpreters don't get to vote on accepting or rejecting a tentative agreement or a contract or sending WFSE back to the negotiating table. Well, the arbitrator appointed by the state finally reached a decision on September 24th, a few days ago. So WFSE sent an email to interpreters on September 26th to address the decision. And as you can see here, they are admitting they didn't get everything they were asking for, but they decided to brag about some quote-unquote notable gains. And this is when they start lying. But let's continue. Here is the first quote-unquote notable gain they're bragging about. A meager 3.5% increase to pay rates starting next year on July 1st, 2025, and a 3% increase effective July 1st, 2026 in 2 years. That is nothing adjusting to inflation and gas prices. This is a joke. I want you to please read everything you see in this image. This is how they deceive and gaslight interpreters. Here they're bragging about expanding information that you can see before accepting an appointment. Information that you're supposed to see on invoices after an appointment has been completed, and information provided on your pay stubs. However, this is nothing to brag about. These are all basic features that all interpreters must have access to. None of these items are notable gains. This is another joke, but this is what WFSE does. And you can see here that this email was sent by Mark Hamilton, one of the labor advocates from WFSE. But now I will show you what the arbitrator really decided for Illinois interpreters. This is a serious moment. This is not a joke and will highlight how WFSE failed all interpreters. Let's read from the decision. Please pay special attention to what the arbitrator said in this section. The arbitrator says the union maintains that parity is needed between the different pay rates paid by the HCA, DCYF, and the Department of Labor and Industries. So basically, the union is saying here that interpreters should have equal pay rates with all state agencies. But here's the problem. The arbitrator continues to say that Illinois has historically paid higher hourly rates to interpreters, and that the union's latest proposal would result in a 13% increase for interpreters working with Illinois providers and a 40 to 47% increase for interpreters working with HCA, DSHS, and DCYF providers. The arbitrator here exposes that DSHS interpreters that WFSE has been representing for 15 years have been getting paid less money than Illinois interpreters who have never been represented by the WFSE union. So what's going on here is that WFSE is more focused on bringing DSHS wages up to speed with Illinois than it is on actually benefiting Illinois interpreters. Also, instead of negotiating these contracts separately, WFSE included Illinois contract negotiations in the same collective bargaining agreement with DSHS. But even though WFSE wanted to get a 13% increase for Illinois interpreters and a 40+% increase for DSHS interpreters, they still got none of that. They only got a meager 3.5% increase in 2025 and the 3% in 2026. But that's nothing for L&I interpreters because we've always been paid way more than DSHS interpreters and without a union. Let me show you. On the left side of this image, you can see that back in 2019, L&I interpreters were getting paid 87 cents per minute, which translates to 52.60 cents an hour. By the way, we were also getting paid mileage. DSHS interpreters represented by WFSE for about 15 years still have not reached $50 an hour for state appointments. But back in 2019, 5 years ago, L&I interpreters were still getting paid over $50 an hour. What do you need WFSE for? Now, to the right of this image, you can see that we were not getting paid mileage anymore in 2020 because Milena Calderati-Waldron from WFSE influenced L&I to take away our mileage reimbursement. However, L&I raised our pay rate to $1.01 per minute, translating to $60.60 an hour. This is from 2021 when L&I introduced Interpreting Works. We were getting paid $1.03 a minute, which translates to $61.80 an hour. We could also bill directly for walk-in, urgent care, and emergency appointments. Back then, L&I was only paying $7.50 to Interpreting Works per appointment. And this is today in 2024. L&I is paying double the amount to SOCI for interpreting appointments. We're still getting $1.03 per minute because L&I was waiting for WFSE to negotiate a contract for this year before increasing our pay rates. Notice how L&I pays way less for video and phone appointments than in-person appointments. Now, look at what the arbitrator decided for those phone and video appointments. The arbitrator here says that IPI or in-person appointments have historically been paid a higher rate than telephone or video appointments. The arbitrator is unwilling to change the overall framework of Section 6.2 and ignore the historical practice of paying a higher hourly rate for in-person appointments versus over-the-phone OPI, VRI, video remote interpretation. So the WFSE union also failed to get equal pay for interpreters for all these appointments. Now, think about this. For years, we have told WFSE leaders that L&I interpreters have better working conditions than DSHS interpreters because of our higher pay and mileage reimbursement. But they would say, yes, but you don't get paid any no-shows or late cancellations, so we're going to get that for you when we win. It'll be on the contract, we promise. Well, this is what the arbitrator decided for those no-shows and cancellations. Let's read it. The arbitrator agrees with the state interpretation of RCW 41-56-450 that L&I interpreters are prohibited from being paid for missed appointments. So there you have it. We will get no payment for no-shows and late cancellations for the duration of this contract until 2027. That was the biggest selling point from WFSE to L&I interpreters, and it was a total failure. But you know what's going to happen? WFSE leaders will make some excuse about how the law is not permitting L&I to pay you for those appointments. But that's going to be a cheap excuse because they promised this and they didn't deliver when it counted. WFSE leaders could have used their influence to change any laws to make this happen, but they chose not to do it because they are incompetent, powerless, and cannot do anything for you. They only care about getting your union dues. But that's not all. I will now read to you part of the tentative agreement reached between the WFSE union and L&I. As you see in this image, this document constitutes an agreement by and between the governor of the state of Washington and the Washington Federation of State Employees. Pre-acceptance of appointment/encounter information provided to interpreters or job offer. It says here, interpreters will have electronic capabilities to view the following information prior to accepting an appointment. And at the bottom, it says right here for L&I, name of insurer, crime victims compensation, or self-insured employer, and when applicable, third-party administrator. Again, this is not a benefit or notable gain in any way, shape, or form. We do have the right to view and know what types of appointments were offered as interpreters prior to accepting anything. This is not a win. Remember, we were able to see all of this information with Interpreting Works before June 17th earlier this year. And here is another huge failure going into this contract. It says here that per RCW 5136080, the insurer has 60 days to pay for properly billed services on approved workers' compensation claims. This is nothing new. They've always had 60 days to pay, but now L&I can still delay your payments. And it's actually written in the contract because WFSE leaders agreed to it. Good job screwing us over, WFSE. To top it all off, they didn't even change anything with SOCI regarding our payments. It says here that the coordinating entity, which we know is SOCI, must distribute all payments to L&I, partial or full, within 15 days of receiving payment from L&I, the self-insured employers, or the third-party administrators, etc. Again, nothing new. SOCI had those 15 days to pay from the beginning, but now look at the language added here. What is this? After getting paid by L&I, SOCI now has 15 days to keep giving you partial or full payments. But wait a minute. Partial payments? Now it is written in the contract they can still keep paying you 5 or 10% of what you're owed. That's what a partial payment is. This is just too much. This is crazy. So instead of fixing the situation, WFSE leaders agreed to let this happen. Remember, this is called a tentative agreement because the parties agreed. WFSE agreed to let L&I keep on doing this to us. You cannot make this up. The WFSE union has now officially betrayed L&I interpreters. But here is what WFSE really cares about, and they made sure to put it in the tentative agreement. They made sure that the coordinating entity, in this case SOCI for L&I interpreters, has the obligation to provide the union with your personal information, including your home address, cell phone number, home number, and email address. And for all interpreters paying union dues to WFSE, they want their full name, home address, and tax identification number, which is your social security number. So much for personal privacy. They will have your home address and other personal information either way, even if you don't give them your social security number. You can give SOCI an employer identification number if you have one from the IRS, but WFSE will still have your home address and any other personal information. And they will use all of that personal information to harass you endlessly and knock on your door at any time to sell you their useless union membership. And as you see here, the negotiator from WFSE was Mark Hamilton, a labor advocate who's not an interpreter and doesn't understand your needs because there is no language in the contract covering L&I appointment scheduling. You know, the distribution of appointments and all the issues with the on-the-spot app, which is a big deal because those are our working conditions. This is frustrating and heartbreaking to me because I warned you about this years ago with Washington interpreters, as you can see in this image from last year. That was one of the last times I pleaded with you not to waste your vote voting for WFSE because nothing would change if they won the election. But here it is. Nothing has changed and things are actually way worse. Even in my last video a few days ago, I showed you all of the working conditions that have stayed the same after 1 year with WFSE as your union. Now WFSE has a contract entering into effect next year and none of this has changed. They failed to get mileage back for interpreters. They failed to get us payment for no-shows and late cancellations, their biggest selling point. We have huge payment delays from SOCI and L&I, and we'll only get a meager 3.5% increase next year and then 3% in 2026. These are not significant pay increases. We have reached a sobering moment as L&I interpreters. This is serious. You deserve a better union because WFSE has completely failed. you see that everything we told you about WFSE is true because they have done nothing for you. They have made things worse for everyone, that's for sure. So don't you wish you could get rid of WFSE representing Illinois interpreters now? But if you're a WFSE member, it is your right to opt out of WFSE and stop paying union dues to such a useless union. Go to optouttoday.com/WFSE1671 to opt out of WFSE and keep your hard-earned money. See you in the next one.